Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Morning miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. Our Ben interview with Bitfarms is coming up in just a few hours time. But before that, Anthony and I wanted to quickly jump on, give you guys a mid-morning market update. We have some news out last week from DMG that we wanted to follow up on, and CIFR leading the pack in a big way here in mixed trading during this morning's session. So a lot going on. We'll get through that in today's presentation. Before we do, smash the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below your top 3 Bitcoin mining picks, October 1st to December 31st, along with your year-end Bitcoin price prediction. We've been running our Miner Madness competition all week. We've got hundreds of entries. It's 100% free to enter, and we'd love to see you compete with the top analysts in this space. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, guys, so that's right. A 2-for-1 today. We've got our regular scheduled podcast with Bitfarms and Ben Ganon coming up in 2 hours. But before that, Anthony, I guess you and I must really like this podcast thing or something, because we felt the need to jump on here, give you guys a quick mid-morning market update and cover a little bit of miner news that's going on in the space. So before we get into that, quick shout out. I posted a video this morning on Realbotics. This is actually a company that Sue Ennis from Hut 8 sits on the board of. So an interesting connection there. Check that one out if you guys haven't already. In addition to that, Anthony, another public service announcement here. We've got our competition going on, our Miner Madness. Now, this was a brainchild of yourself. It's taken off in a big way. We've had hundreds of entries already. Our poor assistant has got to go through all these different channels and find all the entries. We're putting it all into a spreadsheet. We're going to be releasing some really interesting data on the most frequent picks, the top picks, the average Bitcoin price. But a really fun event here, Anthony, 100% free to do, and a great way to get involved in the miner community.
Absolutely, and it keeps it interesting for the next 3 months as well. So, you know, it doesn't cost anything to enter. We're going to try and sort out some prizes for maybe the top 3 or top 5, and yeah, it just gives us 92 days of the next quarter to sort of like to talk as we go through there. Bit like people picking their football or soccer teams and or the golf or tennis or whatever like that, and you pick your players and you hope that you come through. So really interesting to see which are the most popular miners in there, and they won't shock too many people when we announce that. But there's a wide spread, so we've even got some of the smaller miners in there, and believe you me, we're talking about percentage increases here, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a mining company that was valued over 2, 3, 4 billion, or that could be a mining company that's valued at 30 million, but has the appetite to grow quickly. And so, it's going to be an interesting period. There's a massive expectation that the Bitcoin price will start to move in that quarter. So let's see how those technical guys stack up with what they're putting in. We've got a few of the tech guys have submitted their best guesses, and we can hold them to them when we come through to the final routes. But we'll get the closing prices. There'll be the closing prices on Yahoo Finance on the last day of the year. So it's all done equally because there'll be various time zones. But I'll just use Yahoo Finance, which has got really good data. Yep. And then we can announce early in the new year who the winners are, and how those analysts did, those so-called analysts that we all like to call ourselves. And I'm entering, you're entering. We've had a number of the community in terms of the Sebastian and Freedom by 40 and DR Lewis and Bitcoin mining guys in there as well. So maybe we can get Penny Ether to put his 3 down.
I already sent him a note. I've emailed all.
I know he's not into the miners at the moment in a positive way, but actually this is about who's going to perform the best in maybe a bad scenario. So he's more than welcome. we try and get Mike Alpha as well, because if there's one person that talks about mining companies on a day-to-day basis, and it wouldn't be too difficult to at least pick two of his stocks. I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna
CleanSpark and,
say.
and CIFR Mining would definitely be two of them, because otherwise he wouldn't be ramping them up on a daily basis. But TeraWulf maybe the third one. But we get Mike in there as well, make it more interesting. Um, but yeah, it seems in 2 days, because we only mentioned this 2 days ago, it's been unbelievable, the responses. And the only issue is now is they're coming through on so many different platforms that we've got to sort of like scour and make sure we get everything there. So we're using people's user IDs. We're using the platform it's come from. So if it was on X, or it was on YouTube, or it was on Telegram, or it was on Discord, or whatever, or
All over the
Patreon,
place. Yeah.
there's a lot of places that we've got to scour around. So that
Now,
gives us
Anthony,
quite a few days now before the end of the month where we draw a line.
yeah, good point there to get your picks in by weekend. Anthony, do you know what March Madness is? Have you heard of that before?
I've heard it. I mean, I think I've heard it on like CNBC in
See what
terms
I
of
did?
like,
This was clever. So for North American viewers, they'll know what March Madness is. This is a massive NCAA basketball tournament, college basketball.
right.
I cleverly stole the name from that one, calling it Minor Madness, but I knew Anthony wouldn't pick up on it. So
I wouldn't.
got
No,
some
I wouldn't
brownie
get that.
points
No,
there.
I've heard March Madness, but I assumed it was maybe something to do with stocks, and maybe I heard it on CNBC, but I haven't watched CNBC for a few years.
There
So
you go. We'll check it
um,
out next year. It's a big one, a lot of betting there as well. Now, you mentioned Freedom by 40 getting his technical picks. We definitely will be doing that. We'll be posting them. He's also on the channel Friday because you're traveling to a conference,
yeah,
Anthony. So we're going to get an update on Bitcoin price and all of the technical charts on these miners as well. Super interesting there. You also mentioned CIFR as one of the top picks that's come through a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of the percentage gain, over 40% up in the last 2 days. The competition doesn't start till the 1st of October. So anyone who picked CIFR, keep that in mind. You've already baked in about 40% of that gain. Now, Anthony, moving along to the mid-morning market update, once again, as I just alluded to, CIFR is leading the pack up about 15%, but I saw it as high as I think 20 this morning. That's on top of yesterday's huge gain. So this company is really off to the races here on the backs of that 300 megawatt West Texas deal. In addition to CIFR, we've got a couple others in the green today, but a relatively mixed bag from the miners this morning.
yeah, mixed bag. Bitcoin was a drop back down to, it was over 64 yesterday, dropped back down to 63,500. So miners a bit subdued, but Cypher and maybe DMG are the two that have really were really up early in trading today. And yeah, you're right. Cypher Mining had a good increase yesterday on the conclusion of buying that site. Bear in mind, it was a few weeks ago they announced they were going to do it. So yesterday was just really confirmation. It wasn't like new news coming out. It was more, confirmation of what had been agreed, and just from a time stamp perspective, really, to say that had actually gone through. But it is quite significant, that deal. And even a number of analysts now that weren't previously looking at Cypher Mining are now looking more closely at them. So I think Macquarie came out today and they've given Cypher Mining a $6 target, price target. So bear in mind, I mean, we're talking about Cypher going up sort of like 15% day after day here. I mean, it's still probably 50% down from where it was about 6, 7 weeks ago. So it was well over $6 a share in July, August. So it's really dropped significant from then. It dropped below $3. And I was scratching my head. I mean, I even bought some when it dropped below $3 because it was just, it was just really too cheap to sort of like to not have a little purchase of that share. And I think I said to you yesterday on the podcast yesterday, one of the great things about Cypher Mining is the fact that the experience in that company in building data centers is really not equated in many other companies in the mining sector. TeraWulf and Cypher Mining have got a lot of experience in building these data centers. IREN also, when they brought their team in, had a team of people who were building data centers in Canada when they started, some of the biggest data centers in Canada. So, certain miners have got a really good experience level within the company for building these. So I think, and I said before, we've said on podcasts now for at least a month, 5 weeks now that of all the miners who are going to release something big on HPC, I had a feeling it was going to be TeraWulf or CIFR Mining, and both are not failing me at the moment because the share prices are reflecting that there must be some news around to be announced. And Tyler's, he's not going to give anything away until he wants to. He's been asked questions on social media the last 24 hours he's going to reiterate anything, but he'll let the market know when it's ready to know. I mean, he talked, literally in July about an offer for the company, and he was keeping tight lips about that there, but he did mention there'd been an offer for the company. And so, things are happening with CIFR Mining, but this move in the share price this week, along with the finalization of that site there, does indicate that they have power and effectively power available now. So it's not going to be starting from scratch on that site there. They can probably build something out on that site, whether it's HPC, whether it's Bitcoin mining. The likelihood is, because of the Black Pearl site being built for Bitcoin mining, is that the new site will probably looking towards HPC hosting. And, with 300 megawatts, that puts them in the sort of like, the core scientific core we've type scenario. If another big requirement came through, that they're rightly placed. And also TeraWulf at the Lake Mariner site there, that's a big site there with sufficient power and sufficient space and everything there to build something out there as well. So those two companies sitting ready. Other companies have got sites that haven't been developed yet, so they're a bit further down the line. But interestingly, Tyler did say that when you're looking for these big power sites, it's looking in blocks of 3 years. So they're looking for this next 3 years. It's not like looking today. So when they're going out looking, they're actually looking for a 3-year period. So it means that maybe, quite a number of the miners are quite rightly placed. Some of these have got options for power, maybe access to sites, and maybe do something. So it doesn't mean that you have to be ready now. But I think that, of all the miners, TeraWulf and CIFR are probably, maybe ahead of the rest of the pack. I mean, we know Core Scientific have still got 118 megawatts to offload, and we should be hearing soon whether CoreWeave are going to take up that option. And CoreWeave aren't stopping on this investment. I mean, even in UK, they've looking to invest £1 billion in HPC over here, over the pond. So they're not stopping at all. And people are saying, well, it's like a debt mounting CoreWeave, but they're a non-public company. They've had sufficient backing to do this, and when the time comes for them to IPO, people need to pay attention at what that valuation might look like, because it might put some of these other companies into dismay. But as I say, good market update in terms of share prices there. There's a few shares, obviously down today, but we're not talking big percentages. It's just a case of, with the Bitcoin price just hovering around between that 63, 64,000. Every time it rises, they turn green. Every time it falls, some of them turn red. So you just got to, switch off and look at the longer term. Look at the 3 months. That's what we should be planning for now. Minor madness. That's where we need to be. End of the year. Minor madness. Bitcoin price, wherever it's going to be. And let's see how we go from then.
Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today.
Let's see where we go from then. I had to keep a note or a list here, Anthony, of ideas I'm having as you're talking. You got to let me in here, bud. First of all, price targets. CleanSpark also just got some analyst upgrades. I saw a few coming out in the last number of days here. So analyst community starting to take note even of the pure play miners. Now, Anthony, you talk about the volatility in this space, the fact that many of these miners are down 50%. And despite these 10% gains, you guys, I just wanted to remind everyone a 50% drop in share price requires 100% growth in share price to get back there. So it takes a number of these big double-digit days to erase the volatility to the downside we've seen. And then finally, Anthony, you talk about these 3-year planning periods. I saw an article just last night talking about new interconnect. The waiting list now about 7 years for large scale power projects. So unless you have an in with one of these existing data center providers, which is exactly why we're seeing the hyperscalers so interested in the Bitcoin space, you're looking at potentially a 7-year wait for a new high voltage interconnect in the United States. So definitely a waiting game here, a lot of demand for these services. And as we say, Anthony, we're in the perfect place at the perfect time here, I think. Now, speaking of perfect place, perfect time, another fantastic chart from HODL 15 Capital. You guys, if you're not following this account, you need to follow this account, showing 135 million inflow, or I guess 136 million on September 24th yesterday, Anthony. And this actually marks 10 out of the last 12 days with positive inflows. So we had talked about FOMO returning to the space. We talked about that critical mass or that inertia being created. Once this ball is rolling, we feel like the money is going to continue to snowball in, and it appears that's what is happening now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're seeing more and more price updates, and yeah, I saw the CleanSpark one. There was some varied prices there, all ranging sort of between $20 and $30. So from where it is today, that's still a big upside. And bear in mind, the share price had reached $24 by March, the end of March, just before Easter. So it's not going into uncharted territory. It does really need to bounce up at the moment. I mean, earlier today I was looking, its market cap was 2.3 billion, and we've seen it at 4 billion back in March. So it rose from 600 million in October, so that was a massive rise over about 6 months, and then we've seen it pull back week after week since then, effectively. But nothing fundamentally wrong with the company. I mean, they've been buying sites, paying reasonable amounts for these sites, getting new miners into these sites, growing hash rate. I think they're over 26 at the moment in terms of hash rate. They've got a target 37 by the end of the year, and they fully expect to get that. I mean, they just purchased another site where they're going to put another 5 exahash in, and rather than keep that within the total of 32, they've added it to the total. So they're that confident they're going to get to 37. So the analysts are going to start looking at this again and saying, this is big hash rate. I mean, bear in mind, you have to go back about 2.5 years ago, and they were in sort of like, low single digits, 2 or 3 exahash. So massive jump over the last couple of years in terms of growth. Use the ATM, but I mean, they have used the ATM. I think they've sold more than 400% of shares in the last 2.5 years. To get to that point in time, but it's been utilized well. They've managed to raise capital when the share price has been high, and because they're using the ATM, there's been no sort of issue with selling millions of dollars worth of stock on a daily basis, because they have such an average volume, maybe 20-30 million a day, that you could hide a couple of million of shares each day. Nobody none the wiser, because the volume's there. So a lot of these big miners have been able to grow bigger because they're big. We talk about economies of scale trying to save money, but there's the opposite of that is what these miners are playing at now. And the sort of like, I think at the moment there's 10. There was earlier today, there was 10 miners that were valued over $1 billion. And so, a couple of weeks ago, we were only saying, I think there was only 4 or 5 because the price had dropped a lot. Yeah. But we're starting to see money coming back in. That inflows is really positive there, because if there's inflows into the ETFs, we know there's inflows into the miners, because again, it's correlated there. People will be, choosing to come back into both asset classes, and we'll see this continue as we expect with the Bitcoin price hopefully rising for the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting to see the comments in all these videos, Anthony. We get so many comments with frustrated investors with Bitcoin miner prices. I've seen countless comments about, hey, Bitcoin's up 5% today. What's wrong with the miners? Why are the miners lagging? Just keep in mind, you guys, the metric we want to be watching here is price of Bitcoin. If that's going up, these miners are making more money, better margins, more revenue. Realistically, if the share price of the miners is going down or opposite of Bitcoin, that's a good thing if you're trying to accumulate these shares. And we've talked about the correlation still there, but there is a little bit of a lag. And I saw on Sebastian's channel, he's even thinking this may be front running of the Bitcoin price. So I guess two ways to look at it. But the next one we want to talk about here, Anthony, on the smaller side, so definitely not in the billion-dollar club. Second top mover at the time we pulled our chart this morning, though, right behind CIFR. So again, to your point in Miner Madness, you don't need to pick the big companies to win. You need to pick the big percentage gainers to win. DMG released some news last week in relation to a US patent filing for some of their pool protocols. So we'll talk about that, but we just had the team from DMG on, Anthony. They talked about the broad scope within this company. Sheldon has virtually touched every aspect of the Bitcoin mining world, from pools to trust to carbon-free mining, obviously mining operations themselves. Now they're adding some more IP to their portfolio. So why don't you walk us through this one?
Yeah, they've just been granted, and he did indicate what was happening here before it was formally announced, and so they've just been granted a US patent for its custom meme pool protocol. And what this will do is it will enhance the cryptographic event processing. And the technology itself allows secure private transaction handling by screening and hashing specific events separately from public blockchain protocols. And this supports DMG's Core Plus strategy. So they've got a number of strategies. Core Plus is where this one supports, and particularly its Petra technology, where it offers carbon neutral, regulatory compliant transactions. So this is something that Sheldon talked about in the podcast. If you want to look into this more, go back to that podcast. It wasn't that long ago, a few weeks ago, with Steve and Sheldon. Sheldon is probably the OG in the space. He's been in the space longer than everybody else in terms of with the public mining sector, and he's built DMG from the ground up. He was at Bitfury before that. He's worked on lots of other projects. Even helped with Bitdeer's site at Rockdale. He's built infrastructure for other mining companies. He was the first one to write a white paper on the immersion cooling 3 years ago, I think, before people were even using immersion cooling in North America in terms of from the mining perspective. And so he was one that highlighted the benefits of that there. And he just seems to sort of with all these technologies, he seems to be at the forefront of everything that's coming out. This is all about, green technology as well. So, he's very focused on, DMG are 100% green in terms of mining, and not every mining company can state that. There are a few out there that can, but DMG are one of those few. And so this is just an enhancement of what they got there. It's offering the carbon neutral transactions, and it's for financial institutions and ordinal artists. And we talked about ordinals back in when the halving occurred, and there was a spike in the hash price which was related to ordinal transactions. So we know there is an appetite for these out there, and people wanting to post ordinals on the blockchain. And just like we saw with other, like the NFTs, they have a use and they have a value. And, Sheldon's given an opportunity for people to post things in a green way as well. So, he's emphasized the importance of innovation, and it basically gives providers greater control over the transactions while, advancing the secure digital asset solutions. So it's a good update, something that he talked about, but it's now got a patent. So he's at the forefront of the technology in this space, and let's see how this progresses.
Yeah, step in the right direction for the Petra pool and the green carbon transactions on the blockchain. However, Anthony, as we pointed out in that intro, the question here is, can you monetize these ideas? And is there an appetite for these carbon neutral transactions at this point in the market? Being from Alberta, I've seen the ESG push in the oil and gas space. I definitely know there is an appetite there. Generally, that stuff comes a little bit later in an industry's cycle or development. So time will tell. But to your point, Anthony, definitely on the bleeding edge of technology here. With that being said, you guys, a couple great updates, a market overview. And like we said in the intro, we've got Ben from Bitfarms on in just a few hours' time. So stay tuned for that one. Feel free to subscribe to the competition and the newsletter for updates. We'll see you here in a few hours for Bitfarms.